Hey there everybody, this is Mark Crilley. I'm back with another how to draw video, my first ever high definition how to draw video. I should say higher definition because I'm not sure if I'm going to do this in 480p or 720p. Depends on how huge the file gets. Anyway, I'm going to be showing you three different ways of drawing a manga face, ranging from highly realistic over here to highly exaggerated over here. So let's go ahead and zoom in here, and I'm going to start by drawing a couple of basic guidelines. Okay, sorry I did that in time-lapse, but there's going to be quite a lot of time-lapse in this video just because I'm trying to cover a lot of different stuff. Just want to tell you quickly, I start with as perfect a circle as I can manage, and then do these lines, a vertical and a horizontal line. Just like to start with something that, is repeatable, and anytime you do this, it's going to look more or less exactly the same. Now I'm going to add some other lines, again in time-lapse, just to move quickly. Okay, so I added the jaw line coming down here and a few lines for indicating the eyebrows and eyes and so forth. Now I'm going to do in real time my drawing of just sort of getting the locations of the eyes properly. This version of the drawing that I'm doing is really attempting as best I can, pretty accurate to real human anatomy. Of course, the manga drawings are famous for having quite large eyes, but I thought I would do a sort of a reality check drawing here in which we see just how big are human eyes in real life. Those of you who have studied the drawing of the human face, you have been told that the eyes are one eye's length away from one another. That's how you get the spacing of that properly. I'm going to go ahead and indicate some eyebrows here. Notice that when I put my guidelines down, the distance between the eyebrow line and the top of the eye line is a little shorter than those other gaps that I had left. I'm going to go ahead and put in the irises of the eyes. Again, all of this considerably smaller than what we expect to see in a manga drawing. It's kind of interesting, I find, to compare the different things. But, what I get a little obsessed about is the spatial relationships between the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. I find that the mouth comes right around between these 2 points on a real human face. And I should just say here, a lot of people don't like to do a lot of guidelines. And if you don't, then there's no reason that you have to do them. I'm just doing them to help see these spatial relationships between the various points. The nose, I find, is going to be just a touch closer to that circle than it is to the mouth. And in a real human face, the nose is wider and just more defined, in the drawing anyway, than it is in a manga drawing, which tends to minimize the nose, certainly from this angle. And so there you have it. That's kind of the basics. Oh, I got to get in the eyelid, the fold of the upper eyelid, get those lines in. And again, to save time, I'm going to go ahead and move through the rest of this in time-lapse. Maybe quickly tell you about the ears before I do that. They start just a little bit at this upper line, come down more or less to the bottom of that circle. And that's the placement of the ears. You will find that in the final drawing, the more exaggerated, cartoony drawing, that the ears shift down on the head quite a lot. But I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of this in time-lapse just to finish it off, and then we can move on to the next drawing. Okay, so there you have a pretty realistic manga face. In fact, I don't think you could really even call this manga. It's based more or less on real human anatomy. But there are some manga artists that will draw this way, you know. In any case, I just thought it would be interesting to compare true realistic anatomy with what happens when we start exaggerating things in the manga style. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay, so I went ahead and got all the basic guidelines in place. The main thing that you're going to see as different is the lines that indicate the eyebrows. You know, the relationship between all these lines, they all change, mainly to create larger eyes, as you would imagine. Now, this is kind of a fun one because we're dealing with sort of moderate exaggeration, and it becomes more recognizable as manga style. Without being so out of control in terms of exaggeration. So I'm going ahead and putting in indications of the eyes, considerably larger than they were in the previous drawing, but not outrageously so. Notice how I'm using these lines to help me find the proper place for them. And again, we end up with that sort of one eye's length, or one eye's width, I guess I should say, between the two of them. I'm going to go ahead and use these lines up here as my indication of where to put the eyebrows. Again, people may look at this and say, well, why did you bother putting this horizontal line here that you don't even use for anything? I don't use it for anything in the final drawing, but I use it to help me see where to put these other lines. Because this is perfectly between those two, it's just a good sort of anchor for figuring out where those lines go. Let's go ahead and do the irises. Notice that they take up a considerable larger amount of the eye in terms of the whites of the eye versus the iris. And there is a tendency to make manga characters just a tiny bit cross-eyed. I mean, they don't look cross-eyed in the final drawing. Just what I mean by that is that the iris is a touch closer to the middle than it is to the side in terms of the whites that you see. It may just be because we don't tend to draw the insides, you know, the tear ducts of a manga eye. Now we're going to get the nose in there. Actually, let me do the mouth first. I think it does still kind of come midway between these 2 points. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We really begin to minimize the mouth when we draw in the manga style. We're not drawing the upper lip and the lower lip so much. In fact, I'm just going to leave it at this basic line here. And then, again, the nose is closer to the circle than it is to the mouth. 2 little dots, I find, in this style are generally enough. And you can, if you want to, put a simple line here to indicate kind of the bridge of the nose. But otherwise, we're pretty much done. You know, I'm not making this one so much about giving you line by lines on how to draw the details of the eyes, but I'll go ahead and show you the putting in a highlight and then the pupil. Oh, and also I got to show you how to drop in the ears on this one. Again, it's starting kind of at that line at the top of the eye, coming down more or less to the bottom of the circle. That's the interesting thing about this, is it really, a lot of it corresponds pretty closely to real human anatomy, but then just those little touches with the size of the eyes and so forth really makes it stand out as more of a manga drawing versus a realistic drawing. And I'm going to go ahead and do the folds of the eyelids above each eye. And I'll go ahead and move into time-lapse on this to finish off the drawing. Alright, well, I kind of like this style, and I wonder how many people will feel that this is their preferred version. This is more or less the kind of facial proportions you'll see in something like Naruto, which are, you know, a little more realistic looking than quite a lot of manga-style drawings. And I find it's kind of a nice balance between real human anatomy and recognizable manga style. Speaking of which, in the last one, I am going to move on, as you might have guessed, to the large eye style. And I just want to say, I do not mean to propose that there are three ways, and these are the three ways of drawing manga faces. No, there are hundreds of ways, and I've just chosen kind of three representative styles. But yeah, by all means, I encourage you to explore many of the other varieties. Let's go ahead and move on to the last version. Okay, so the first thing I want you to notice is that the jaw has become a little more compact in this version if you compare it to the other versions. A little less space between the bottom of the circle and the chin. Let's go ahead and do the eyes. Like I said, this is the big exaggerated version, so the eyes are going to be quite humongous. And but this is by no means the largest that they can go. I mean, you've all seen some manga artists really go kind of crazy with the manga eyes, these gigantic shiny things. I'm not a huge fan of that style, but you know, if any of you want to learn that more exaggerated style, just say the word and I'll do a lesson. In fact, you know, I'd be happy to do a more in-depth lesson on any one of these particular styles, if that's what you would like to see. Let's go ahead and get the eyebrows in here. Notice in this case that the eyes become so large that they are no longer really exactly one eye away from each other, maybe a little less than one eye. And then the irises really come to dominate almost the entire eye in this version. You know, the whites of the eye are kind of barely there anymore. And as I said before, there is a tendency to have this slightly cross-eyed look. Although they never appear cross-eyed. It's just sort of a stylistic thing. The nose is going to be hugely different in this one, in the sense that its location is at the very bottom of the circle, right where this center line kind of crosses, and it is just a little dot. I mean, you really don't even have to indicate the nostrils at all. Between the bottom of the circle and the chin, that's exactly where I'm going to put the mouth. I'm going to make it even smaller than I did last time. And then watch where I put the ears quite a bit lower than in the other drawings. Again, this is not a requirement. If you think this looks weird, go ahead and put them higher in your own drawings. But the drawing that I studied for creating this large eye style did have the ears considerably lower, I noticed. And then because the irises are so much bigger, you tend to get a bigger highlight. But again, there's, you know, if anyone who's seen my 100 Ways to Draw Manga Eyes video knows that there are just endless ways of drawing the iris. The pupil in this version that I'm doing ends up being quite large to create that shiny, glassy look. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to time-lapse to finish this one off. Oh, almost forgot those all-important folds of the eyelid. Not a requirement. In fact, many artists don't draw them at all, but I like to get them in there. So let's go ahead and we'll finish it off. Okay, so there you have my final big-eyed version, and I hope you found this video useful. I'm, you know, a little bit obsessed with the placement of facial features in manga drawings and how they change quite drastically from one artist to the next. I love challenging myself to learn the different styles, and hopefully you will find this helpful as you sit down to create characters of your own. Let me go ahead and pull back. I want you to see all three of them at once. Okay, so there you have it, the three different styles I decided to show in this video. One thing I noticed I was not really pointing out was that the size of the forehead kind of changes proportionally, gets smaller as it goes, and then the width of the neck in real life is considerably wider, and then it gets narrower as we get more and more cartoony. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know what kind of videos you want to see me do now that I have the capability for high resolution. I think I can deliver hopefully better videos than ever, and I do read all your comments. Thanks so much for supporting me that way. This is my manga series, Miki Falls. I want to thank anyone and everyone who has bought this. 4 volumes in this series. It's from HarperCollins. And also quickly, Brody's Ghost from Dark Horse Comics. This is book 1, book 2. Still working on book 3. Thanks for your patience on that one, but that's available right now. Generally, I encourage people to consider Amazon. That's your best bet. But you can always ask your local place, local bookstore, to special order my series if they don't already have it on the shelves. Enough about that. Thank you so much for watching my videos. I hope you found this one useful, and I will be back with another one real soon.